Today we're looking at the question, have we lived before? The microcosm within the macrocosm. And I would like to welcome all of you here and welcome our YouTube audience as well. All of you out there in YouTube land, all over the country, all over the world. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, to know you're out there, to know our message is going out quite a ways. So the question, have we lived before, is not one that I'm going to provide an answer to. It's just one that I think we all should consider, and being in unity, I think most of us have. One of the reasons we're probably here. But I've encountered many people in unity who believe they have had previous lives. Though I have no recollection of past lives, it seems spiritually logical to assume we've all had several. Accepting that the soul survives the death of the body, it is not a huge leap to entertain the notion of preexistence. And that is a common belief in some religions, that we have lived before. In fact, this statement out of this passage out of the Wisdom of Solomon, which is not a biblical book, but it's held in pretty high esteem. As a child, I was by nature well endowed, and a good soul fell to my lot. Rather, being good, I entered an undefiled body. So it's definitely a suggestion of preexistence. I entered an undefiled body. But I wanted to share just a little bit of a case. I'm going to focus on one case today. It took place in Brazil some years ago, and it's reported by Dr. Ian Stevenson. And he was really a pioneer in past life research, and he focused only on children. He did not endorse the idea of past life regression. He felt there was too much room for the possibility of error by hypnotizing someone and having them recall their past lives. I think there may be a lot of value to that. I am not into any of that. I don't care to go back and see the life I lived. I don't even care to go back to any point of this life and relive it again. It's just the idea of how big is our experience, how large is our experience. But Dr. Stevenson became interested in this, and I don't remember exactly how he did, but he was introduced to some case of a child that began speaking of memories of a past life, and he was a meticulous researcher. He started out in his career as a psychiatrist and left that career to embark on this research. And the research was actually funded by the founder of Xerox, the company. His last name is Carlson. And he actually provided the money for Stevenson to travel around the world to interview children. And what he would do is get the story that the child was telling and elements from parents and different people that knew things or heard things that the child said. And then he would go to a village. They would suggest. He would come into contact with people that child may have said were their parents. He came up with over 2,000 cases that were verifiable, he felt. And since then, Dr. Jim Tucker has taken up that work. Both of these men were with the university, or are with the University of Virginia. Tucker is still alive and kicking and doing this research. If you want to go on YouTube and tune into some of the stories that he shares, they're pretty incredible. And I find it very difficult to, after listening to what they report, Stevenson and Tucker, to deny that there's not something to this. It just, without question, to me is... but anyway, the late Dr. Ian Ian Stevenson, a pioneering researcher on children who claim to remember former lives, relates the story of Maria from Brazil, whose father drove off her young lover, who then committed suicide. That is, the young boy committed suicide. Maria was so distraught that she gave up her will to live, intentionally exposing herself to cold and wet weather and dying of tuberculosis. So her name in the life she began to recall was Maria. Her next life, her name was Marta. And as Maria, she died of, it was really suicide. She admitted to a friend who was the wife of the schoolteacher, local schoolteacher, that her death was intentional. She didn't want to live anymore. Very angry at her father. But what she told this friend, Ida, is she said, "I'm going to come back as your daughter," which was pretty amazing. Nobody, of course, believed that could happen. But, so before she died, she told friend Ida that she would be back as her daughter. Months later, Ida gave birth to a girl she and her school teacher husband named Marta. When Marta began talking, she recalled many incidents from her former life, which her father wrote down and corroborated. The authenticity of the case is what drew Dr. Stevenson to it. And what I would just say about Dr. Stevenson is he was highly respected. He's passed on now, but I had one case, in the 40-some years I've been doing this, I had one case of about a 3 or 4-year-old boy that claimed to be his grandfather, and it seemed very authentic. So I suggested that the family contact Ian Stevenson, who was alive at that time. And then I contacted Jim Tucker later on and recounted the story. But the boy that I talked to as a 3 or 4-year-old is, probably 20-some or 30 years old now, so it would not be a case that could be researched. But it's the reason this story stands out to me is the girl, before she passed, said, "I'm going to come back as your daughter," and then later on it was pretty much corroborated that she was her daughter, that this was the girl that had passed away. And it's one of the things that stands out to me is, why did she come back? What role did choice have to play in this whole thing? She came back because she wanted to be the daughter of a friend. There was no big thing attached to that. It's just, I want to do this, and so that's how she came back. And so I think when we start asking ourselves, if I'm here by choice, what is that choice? It could be something that simple. That's the point I want to make with this story. It doesn't have to be real deep and metaphysical or anything else. Or it could be because we want to live in a certain place. I've asked the question, or brought up the idea, that if you interview 100 people in Grand Junction and say, "Why are you here?" Some will say by choice. Some will say, "I came because I was with a spouse that got a job here. I don't really like it here," or "I love it here. I was born here," or whatever. There'd be different answers for as many people as you ask, I'm sure. And so when you put it in that perspective, we're trying real hard to figure out this life, trying to figure things out. Why would I be here? What's the great reason? I have thought before that I came because I wanted to be a teacher, wanted to be in doing what I'm doing now. And that may very well be the case. But it may be that I just liked Kansas. I can't imagine that being the case, but it could have been. I was born in Atchison, Kansas, Amelia Earhart's hometown. That's the town of Atchison. That's the claim to fame, is myself and Amelia Earhart were born there. But anyway, I think if we put it in that perspective, that we may have made the choice to come here, it may not have real deep meaning. It may just be that we wanted to be with someone, or we wanted to be in a certain place. It could be that we love the taste of ice cream. It could be something that simple. If you don't have a body, you can't eat ice cream. I don't think. So that, to me, puts this life in a little bit different perspective. That if we can come here by any choice that we decide is important to us, then we say, I'm here because I chose to be here. What am I doing with it? Am I choosing to live each day as if this is my choice, this is my life? Or am I resisting? Am I saying, why am I here? To me, I find it more advantageous to say, I don't know what choice I made, why I would have chosen to come here, but just to say that I did. Then I can look at my life each day and say, okay, this is mine. What am I going to do with it today? How am I going to live this life today? Am I going to live it questioning, this is hard. I don't understand it. Why am I here? Who put me here? Was I forced to come? I like to just think that I'm here by choice, whether I remember why I made the choice or not. Because when you look at your life on a daily basis, it's really one choice after another. If somebody says something to you that is upsetting to you, whose choice is it to react to that? It's your choice. Nobody's making you do it. And there's a certain amount of freedom to that, because you can then say, well, I can choose not to do that. I can choose not to have that kind of reaction. But I think choice plays a huge role in our being here on this planet. And I have a feeling that we choose roughly the time that we are to leave. One thing that's a bit mystifying to me is when people have a near-death experience and they're told it's not your time, you've got to go back. It appears they don't have a choice. What I would say to this is the all-wise beings of light know that the person being sent back knows why they're here. And they know they have not fulfilled their reason for being here. And so they're just saying, it's not your time. Go back and take another look at what you think you're doing here and why this would have been important to you. Why would you have taken on a body and gone into this situation, into this life, and then you're ready to get out before you've completed why you went there? I think they're trying to do us a favor. So Ian Stevenson and now Dr. Jim Tucker have documented thousands of such cases, so many that even the most skeptical would find it difficult to deny the possibility of reincarnation. Concerning Maria's case, a point that fascinates me is that she made the choice to come back as the daughter of her friend, something she simply wanted to do. I tend to think this is true for us all. We're here because we wanted to come. And I also think we do not know all the twists and turns this life would take. We put our canoe in the river, not knowing where the rapids or the quiet stretches will be. And this is, if you think of your life in all of the different periods, we all have periods in our life. We can think back, maybe a period of time we lived someplace. I can think back to different ministries. This is my fifth ministry, fifth and longest, by the way. And each of those ministries is like a different incarnation. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. This one's still going on. But it's a lifetime. Each one is a very specific period. So I can think of those, but it's not just my career that I can think of. I can think of a lot of different experiences that I've had along the way. Several years ago, and I've shared this story with you, we were at the Grand Canyon and decided to hike into it. And I guess I have to take the blame for that choice, that decision, because I, being the father of 2 young children and a wife that always never wanted to leave my side, followed me down. So we went down into the Grand Canyon, and it was half of the experience was pretty good. What goes down in a canyon has to come back up. So down in the canyon was 103 degrees. Coming back up was a very difficult process. But that's like a life. It's like the morning that you leave on that trip, you're born. It's your birth. You made a choice to enter a life. And it looked like it would be a pretty good idea, a pretty fun thing to do. And even as we were going down, young people were coming up, and their faces were bright red, and they were sweating, and I should have taken that as a hint. But it was a rather challenging trip, to say the least. But I think that's how some lives happen, ours included. There's things about our life that we don't really like. To say I chose it, we would be looking at this thing that we're going through and say, why would I choose something like this? Well, why would I choose to go down inside of a Grand Canyon and then not think about what it would be to come back out? But it was my choice. And it's if you think of it that way, then you do what's necessary to get through that life, to get through that situation. As I said, one of the ways that I coped with it was I stopped thinking about getting out of the canyon. It took us 12 hours, by the way. How do I get out of here? Where's the top? So I mentally shifted to just focusing on the next bend in on the path. If I could just get there, because I was pretty blown out. I was having pretty much a heat stroke, a debilitating headache, and one of my knees had gone out that I didn't even know I had problems with. But if I could just make it there. And so sometimes that's how we deal with this life. You're going through something. Why am I here? What's this all about? Well, I'm here, and I'm here by choice. So all I got to do is make it to that next bend. That's my goal. It's not doing anything spectacular while I'm on this trip. And you notice, or I noticed, it was a lot easier to enjoy the journey on the way down than it was on the way out. In fact, the journey became hell. And that's, we were just all out of shape from Missouri Flatlanders. You get into a situation like that, and it's not something you're prepared for. So I think there are times that we probably step into life that we are prepared for it. I think there are people that know what they're getting into, and they know there's going to be rough spots. There's going to be rapids on that river, and there's going to be long places where you just float your canoe and not much happens. Very boring. But you chose to put your canoe in, you chose to have that experience, and you take whatever comes with it until it's time to depart. The day of your funeral, or the day when you put your canoe on the roof of your car. So think about all the many phases of your life that have had a beginning and an end. You were born into that particular role, and you died to it. It is now a memory of a previous phase, a previous life. But you are still you. You put your canoe in at one place in the river, and you beached at another. How many times does this happen in one life. It's many. It's a microcosm of the macrocosm, it would seem. So when we look at life as it happens, just normal life, we have a lot of births and we have a lot of deaths. And we have a lot of choice in between. And I personally see no reason why that would change when we drop the body. That we are making our choices from the soul level, and we obviously don't know everything that we're getting into when we take on a body. And one of the first things we don't know we're getting into is being born into a body of a child. This is one of the things that the researchers find in talking with children is they're very frustrated that they have this child's body. And they often say, when I was big, this or this would happen, or this is what I did, or this is the kind of food I would enjoy. Some children want to smoke cigarettes because they smoked in the previous life. This Maria had asthma problems when she was reborn as Marta. And Dr. Stevenson thought it was because she died of pneumonia. That she carried that over. And that's another aspect of his research that is very fascinating, that birthmarks and different things may be in the same place that a bullet hole or some wound occurred in the previous life that took the child from their previous life. And they also point out that we all don't remember previous lives. The kids that do tend to have traumatic deaths. That's why they remember them. And that's kind of a rule of thumb. It's not a hard, fast idea, but it would make sense that if you don't remember a previous life, it may very well be you didn't have a traumatic death. But again, this is just something to think about. I like the idea. I have no interest again in going back and trying to figure out what I was in a previous life. But I like the idea that birth and death are not bookends. They're phases, they're things we go through. That I am that which I am. I'm the soul that passes through all of these experiences for whatever reason. But I think the main reason is because I want to do it. And I think it's easier to get along with life when we come to that conclusion. Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. If you'd like to help support this ministry, just click the donate card at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Your financial support means a lot to us. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. To subscribe to this channel, simply click our logo. Thanks again for your interest in Independent Unity, and have a wonderful week.